So let's rock and roll. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. So thank you so much, everybody. What a great turnout we have again for our fifth webinar in our Industry Expert webinar series. We're always really great to see. Please feel free to introduce yourself, your company, if you have a community, and where you're from. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Ari. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Tribe, and I'm super excited to be able to host these Industry Expert webinar series. And I'm really looking forward to this one today, also as a Notion user myself, and to learn more from Ben, who's head of community at Notion. So for those of you that actually aren't familiar with Notion, Notion's a knowledge management software. They bring notes, docs, wiki, and project management all into one place. It makes all your work customizable so your team gets to work exactly the way you want to. I'm sure, Ben, you're going to cover a little bit more about what Notion does. So enough about that from me. That's why Ben's here. But let's just jump right into the webinar format for today. So a few more remarks from me, including an overview of what our webinar series is, and our webinar format. Ben will then take the floor for his presentation. We'll then transition to Q&A and do a quick wrap up at the bottom of the hour, including reminding you that the session is being recorded. And we also actually have a survey that we send out just to keep improving these webinars because we're doing them about every 6 weeks or so. So what is Tribe's Industry Expert webinar series and why do we have it? So the goal is to bring industry experts to community builders. And what does that mean? We want to help community builders through collaboration and engagement with industry experts. Most of the content that you see from this webinar series is actually agnostic to any one community platform. The goal is to foster more best practices and share the knowledge with a wider group of people. Another goal and secondary goal is to either introduce or reintroduce you to Tribe. For those of you not familiar with Tribe, we want to give you an awesome first impression. What better way than to introduce you to us in such a selfish way? So for those of you that aren't familiar with us, using the Tribe community platform, Tribe empowers businesses to build unique and distinct custom communities under their brand. And for those of you who are familiar with us, this webinar series hopefully accomplished its goal of driving more value, beyond the tools we provide you through our platform to help you build more successful communities. Finally, I want to share more about these webinars and where you can retrieve the content. So as you see here, this is Tribe's Campfire community. So if you go to community.tribe.so, you'll see there's a section called Community Insights on the left-hand side. Ben, there you are, which is awesome. So Ben's recording is actually going to be hosted here right inside of our community. You can also access our previous recordings. So our last one was with Kyle Haggy from Morning Brew, where we learned about the community efforts over there. We've done other previous ones with Sasha Mombarts about community KPIs, as well as with John O'Bacon about strengthening relationships with brand-led communities. We actually kicked off this webinar series with Richard Millington. And in some cases, like in Richard's case, there's actually access to the deck right here inside the community. So all of the resources are there. The session is being recorded and it will be posted inside of our Campfire community, as well as emailed to all the attendees. So let's continue on because I'm sure we're all waiting to hear from Ben and not from me. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So as I said, the webinar is being recorded. An important call comes up, internet cuts out. We've got you covered. As you might have noticed, everyone's muted, but we definitely encourage you to be vocal in the chat and to hold on to your questions by submitting them during the session, or if then feel free to trump me there. And if you want questions coming in during the session, totally up to you. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll actually see the ability to submit questions in the Q&A section. I'll be reviewing them and queuing them up for Ben during the Q&A segment. Finally, we do need your feedback. So I did mention that we have a survey that we send out, and it would be great if you could fill it out with anything that you'd like us to do in the future, change about our webinar format, things like that. So finally, let's formally introduce Ben, and then Ben, I'll let you kind of transition and start your presentation. So Ben is a product builder, former founder, marketer, and community guy. He's also got a great smile. He's currently leading community efforts at Notion, the all-in-one workspace for individuals and teams. He's the ambassador program, user conference, influencer program, consultant directory, and template gallery are some of his key projects at Notion. Apart from leading the community at Notion, Ben actively makes angel investments and comes with founding experience. Quite a dynamic individual. I can't wait to hear your lessons. So I'm actually going to turn things over to you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's let you take the floor. Ben.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here. I'm curious, does anyone here use Notion? Maybe feel free to share in the chat.
At Tribe, we do. We're Notion power users. Yeah, our entire company. It's a big part of what we do.
Cool. This is awesome. Wow, this is really great to see. Cool. Well, I'll go ahead and share my screen, and if anyone has questions, I guess feel free to share them, and I'm happy to answer later on, or if I'm able to see them also during the session. But I want this to be dynamic, and definitely want to hear from you all, and share whatever I can from my experience at Notion. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, is this better?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's what Ben really sounds like, everybody. I'm gonna go back on mute, and let's get back to it. Awesome.
Okay, and, that's unfortunate. Sorry about that. I didn't realize AirPods were not so great. Should I go through what I was saying before, or?
Sure. If you want to backtrack maybe a minute or two, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah. So I basically just kind of went through how I ended up at Notion. I built a project about it and was just really passionate about it. I helped build a Facebook group and ended up meeting the team very early on and joining them kind of as someone to focus on community when the team was quite small, which I think is pretty unique and a testament to how much kind of the folks at Notion wanted to invest in community from early on. So that's kind of what I went over before. So I'll just talk about kind of some of the early projects at Notion, and afterwards I'll share a little bit more about kind of where we are today and how we've scaled some of these. Kind of how we were looking at things early on a couple of years ago. So I think one of the most interesting things that we saw early on was how people were creating cool things on Notion and sharing them with their followers or friends. So there actually wasn't a place to do that on our website or something that we were providing. So so first kind of very logical project was building out a template gallery where people could submit things that they were creating with Notion. And I think it was over the years, we saw more and more people creating things with Notion, sharing, and this has really become kind of like a key driver of how people discover Notion and get started with it. Events were another big thing prior to COVID. So we saw maybe a couple folks who were gathering around Notion, and we decided to just kind of provide funding for folks who wanted to do this. And we were able to scale that to a point where we saw meetups happening in almost every day in different cities, which is really cool. We also ended up testing out kind of organizing our own events, in-person events, and this is something we kind of pivoted away from at some point because we realized it was just so much more powerful for the community to go and organize these on their own. And I think another interesting thing that we did early on was instead of kind of creating our own hub where everyone in the community kind of could interact and the only place to go, we allowed people to go and create their own communities. So just to give you kind of like a peek of what it looks like today, there's actually dozens of groups in different languages, and in German and Spanish, different interests, different countries and cities, and they're all kind of moderated and run by people in the community. We don't actually moderate or run any of them. And we did this pretty intentionally because we thought there was something really compelling about these being bottoms up and driven by the community, versus it kind of coming from like a tops down place and saying like, hey, come here, do it the way we want to do it. So that was that's been kind of a really interesting kind of model for us in how we approached it. And the way we went about that was we saw some super fans on social media, and these were folks early on who we noticed were organizing a meetup or writing a book about Notion or starting a YouTube channel about Notion. And we were able to connect with a couple. Started off with maybe like 10, 20 folks like this, and started to build relationships with them and try to understand like, why were they doing this? What could we be doing to support them to do more of this? And we kind of ended up turning this into an ambassador program. And really what ended up happening was these folks were the ones who ended up starting almost all of these community groups, who were hosting events, who also, creating amazing templates. And they kind of became like the powerhouses behind like the Notion community. And for us, our goal was always just like, what could we be doing to kind of foster more of this? What could we be doing to, make them feel like they're really special and together with us, and what could we be doing to show how appreciative we are? So we came up with kind of perks of being in the program. We created our own kind of place for them to connect. We hosted events for them to meet folks on our team. We hosted events for them to meet each other. We did, fun things like this video, just like sending appreciative videos and kind of, I don't know if this will play here. Yeah. So we did kind of like, fun things like that over the course of years, and built like really strong relationships with people who are just doing incredible things. And what's been really amazing to see is, many of these people have just built unbelievable things online around Notion. Like, to give you a couple of examples, like there's a few folks who have 30, 40, 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, and their YouTube channels are all about Notion. Some of the folks who started communities about Notion have scaled them beyond like our wildest imagination. Like r/Notion on Reddit, which is run by the community, has over 200,000 subscribers. Another example is there's two folks in Vietnam in our ambassador group who started a group called Notion Vietnam that has, I think, like 220,000 people now. There's someone else who started a Notion in Arabic group that has, I think, 40,000 people now. So it's just been like incredible to see how these folks have scaled these things over time to just become like these vibrant kind of hubs for this kind of decentralized Notion community. And I can see the chat. If anyone has questions or anything, like feel free to chime in or share in the chat. Like happy to answer. There's just like so much history and context here, so I might be missing stuff. And so if at any point you have like questions, feel free to let me know. I spoke about some of this already a little bit, but how we thought about scaling all of this, I think was interesting. And I think a big theme here for us was always like, with almost every initiative we started or program we started, we saw signs of it in the community. We never kind of came tops down and said like, everyone do this, or let's focus on this, or do this. Like there was always kind of these things bubbling up in the community, and we would see kind of trends or themes, and then we would kind of go and say like, okay, this is really interesting. How can we make a lot more of this happen? Like, how can we support more of this? How can we foster a lot more of this? With almost everything, that was the case. That was the case with like the community events I told you about. That was the case with folks who started YouTube channels, and other examples. So I think I already spoke about kind of the community organized groups. Ambassadors, I think just another kind of point on like how we continue to engage them was with early access and feedback. Like oftentimes these folks really wanted to be heard and have a strong connection to the team, and giving them early access to features we were building proved to be like a really kind of powerful way to do that. Another thing that we noticed was we saw folks who were starting to monetize their followings and assets that they were building. And some of them were working with companies to help onboard them to Notion. So we built a certification program where folks could take an assessment and work on an exercise, and depending on their score, kind of get approved as a certified consultant and be added to our directory. So this is what it looks like, and then this really just started as seeing a couple people doing this, and now there's dozens of folks doing this, and many of them are actually earning their entire living around this. Like this is an example of him who he tweeted that he's able to pay rent and everything from Notion work, which has been really amazing. So it's been really inspiring to see more and more people doing this. And again, like I think it's really important that we weren't the ones like who came and said like, hey everyone, like start doing this, right? This was very much kind of bottoms up, driven by folks who were doing this, and we just found ways to kind of encourage more people to do this and give people more resources and access and visibility for what they were doing. I see Q&A and see another question. I'm curious, how did you generate the momentum initiatives the time you had a couple dozen members to 1,000? So, I mean, what's interesting there is we, all these groups that exist, like these, and I showed you more before, like we don't run any of them, right? They're all community run. So really what happened was these ambassadors, they were the ones who were out there marketing these, pushing them, creating YouTube channels, creating Twitter accounts, whatever they could to get it out there. So all of the growth and traction really came from the amazing kind of things that they were creating. The biggest thing that we did was we just kind of centralized this all in one place and directed people on our website to this so that they would know this exists. Because otherwise, like, otherwise, like our users probably wouldn't actually know about it unless they found out about it organically, somewhere. So, so other, I guess, interesting things that we kicked off later were, we heard from a lot of people that they just wanted to kind of bring together the community in a more central way. So we kicked off kind of an event series called annual event series called Block by Block, and we had one. We've already had 2 so far, which has been really, really exciting. We kicked off a champions community, and this is really the two things that we run our ambassadors program and our champions program, as kind of our own centralized places. So the champions program is for folks who are champions on team plans, enterprise plans. So they're kind of the internal champions at our customers. And this has been really exciting because this has kind of become like a really scalable way for our customers to learn from each other, get inspired by what other folks are doing, and just see kind of all the different use cases for how they can do this. And I think one other interesting thing that we ended up scaling quite a bit has been our work with influencers. So we saw early on, again, we saw this kind of happening organically, where there were just a couple of folks who produced YouTube videos about Notion. And we're talking about how much they loved it. And so we thought, okay, let's reach out to a couple more and see if they would want to create videos about Notion. And so we set up a really robust sponsorship program where we ended up working with hundreds, probably thousands at this point of influencers who have really kind of helped spread Notion very virally on their platforms. And what's been really cool about this is most of these influencers hear about Notion from other influencers. And oftentimes, we'll talk with folks who might not even use Notion now and just kind of set them up so that they can get started with it. And then a couple months later, they'll come back and say like, hey, this is loving Notion, like would love to partner with you all. And so we did this on YouTube, and we ended up doing this on TikTok as well. It's been a really, really incredible channel for us to spread Notion virally. I see a couple questions. Would it be better should I go through them now or afterwards?
Yeah, let's wait until the end, and then we can get to them. There's a lot of great questions coming in. I can see them. I'm excited. Okay,
cool. So I want to spend more time on questions, so I'll probably just go through this quickly. Yeah, so just like in terms of like how we've grown on the back end and how we support all of this. Couple of things that we've done, hired folks on our team, worked with a lot of contractors to help run, different parts of these programs. We also started to spin out some of these projects to other parts of the company as Notion scaled. So a lot of these projects have kind of like taken on wings and really, grown into their own kind of larger programs. And if you want to take a look at kind of what this looks like today, you can go to notion.so/community. This is kind of where it all is, just to get a sense of how we kind of what our entry point is for folks who want to get involved in the Notion community. So other ways that we've kind of approached things, just trying to iterate when we can, as fast as we can. Obviously, I'm sure many of you, had to iterate during COVID and change from anything in person to digital. And in-person events they were a really big thing for us before COVID. So just adapting to that, finding ways to like outsource where we can, given limited resources. And then I think a really a tough one for community oftentimes is just like how do you measure success? And then the way we've approached it has been around kind of having goals for each of these pillar programs. So we don't really have one kind of primary North Star that we're like focusing on. It's more that each program kind of gets wrapped up with its own kind of goals, and how we're trying to kind of expand each one. And they're all kind of measured differently, right? Like our template gallery is measured differently than our ambassador program, which is measured differently than our customer champion program, which is measured differently than like our influencer program. So they're all very different, but they're all kind of like feeding into this flywheel that is kind of generating momentum for us. And I would say kind of like high level, really anything we do for like related to community at Notion has kind of two high level goals, which are around top of funnel growth and user education. So as we've scaled, we've tried to make sure that like the programs we're working on are helping either drive more users to Notion or are helping equip our users to be able to teach Notion better. These are just kind of a couple articles on like where Notion is today. Happy to share these if they're interesting. I can also share how we use Notion internally for community, which I think if folks use Notion, just to kind of give a sense of like how we do that. I think one of the I showed you this before, but probably one of the coolest ways you could use Notion on the community side is like having a page that kind of shares everything that is going on. So this is our page where you can see kind of any Notion user can come and see like how to get involved, code of conduct, brand guidelines, how they can get involved, events happening, how they can become an ambassador, how they can join our champions community, other ways they get involved, certification. So I think this is like a really good use case for Notion because it allows you to kind of like centralize everything in one spot. So I want to just make sure we have like a lot of time to answer questions. So I'm happy to go through that if now's a good time.
Amazing. Yeah. So I can queue them up for you, but that was awesome. It's super cool to kind of see like just how much Notion has grown and kind of all the things that I'm sure you got so excited by kind of along that growth journey with, ambassadors coming up, people putting out YouTube videos and just trying to create like an ecosystem around that you guys could manage with all that participation going on. I'm sure that's for a lot of the attendees on here that are building businesses and building communities, they're hoping for those types of results from the end user. So the first question, the person who's been waiting the longest is Paul Choi. So it's a two-part question. What level of support do you provide group / meetup organizers? And how do you manage bad actors, if there are any?
Yeah, so the group / meetup organizers, we fold that all into our ambassador program. And we invest a lot into it. So we ended up hiring a community manager to focus on our ambassador program. And we, let's see, I mean, I shared kind of some things we do, but like we give these folks early access to things we're building. We have like a channel dedicated to feedback that someone on our support team will kind of keep a close eye on. We host events like with our team, we host events for them. There's just like a lot of kind of engagement and activity in there. So, we're always kind of like trying to find ways to keep these folks involved and help them kind of succeed with what they're doing. In terms of bad actors, we have a pretty strong like code of conduct that we reference, and you can find it on notion.so/community, that page. Any program that we run, we ask people to abide by that, and pretty straightforward process. Like if people report someone or if someone kind of goes against our code of conduct, then we would take action. But I think having a very like clear code of conduct that you can reference is really important, and just kind of placing it as many places as possible so that there's visibility is pretty critical.
Awesome. So Mel Southern had two questions. The first one was, what advice do you have for very small teams who can't yet dedicate a single person to building community?
I think for us, working with contractors has been really amazing. So, if you're able to get a couple hours from someone a day or a week, any capacity, I think like, I think that's a good starting point. I think the best thing, and this is kind of like, my story and how I ended up in Notion, but ideally like finding someone who is very passionate about what you're doing and maybe already uses, is a user or is kind of, showing early signs like this person is a super fan. I think working with someone like that is ideal. I think, you, especially early on, like you need a lot of energy and creativity and perseverance to like, really build this out and try things out. So, finding someone who's just like really excited about what you're doing, I think can be pretty effective.
Awesome. So you sort of answered the second part of the question, but I'll ask it anyway, in case anything new comes to mind. What are 3 valuable things that a small startup without a community lead can do to start building community?
It's a good question. I mean, I think something that I did early on was just spending time on video calls with like folks who were just really passionate about what you were building. So just like building a relationship with 5, 10 people. And again, this really comes down to like your product and what you're creating, right? And people connecting to that. That's the number one step, right? Because like if people weren't passionate about Notion as a product and excited about it, and none of this would really exist today. So that's really like the number one thing. I think it is like at the end of the day, it is like the product and the story and kind of everything around that. So yeah, talking to people, spending time building those relationships. I mean, as I said, like, product is where it's at. Yeah, maybe just like coming up with like ideating around, it could be something you do now, it could be something in the future, but like how it is that you can add value to people, for folks who connect around your product, like how could you be adding value around that, right? Is it around, is it that they want to inspire each other? Is it that they want to like learn from each other? Is it that like there's a topic folks are really excited about? Is it like your mission and kind of what your company stands for? Like just kind of coming up with value add ways for these folks to connect, whether it's now or down the road. And I think that can take time to figure out. Because so many people try to do that, right? And you really have to like stand out for that to work well.
Awesome. So I do apologize. I have my daughter is crying a little in the background, but I'll persevere through it myself. But from Bianca Mueller, I'm going to ask these two questions together. I love these questions. I actually had the same type of question for you myself. So who monitors community-led groups, and how do you control outdated or off-brand resources that have been shared throughout your communities?
So the ambassadors in our program monitor all these groups that exist. I'm not even the admin of any of them. So they're entirely run by them, and we make that, like, we try to make that clear on our community page. Like, these are community run groups. We don't own them. We need to have like disclaimers around that. And we do like share best practices and have guides on kind of what we recommend. But at this point, just to kind of look like our scale, it's impossible, I think, to like, we don't know what's going on in like many of these groups, and they're also in, I don't know how many languages, 50 plus languages. So we don't have any capacity to like follow that and know, the best, like our philosophy is like having a strong relationship with the moderators and these ambassadors who run them, and making, giving them kind of like a place like within the Notion, team, and kind of being closely connected to us, is really just like the most feasible way for us to kind of like to grow these in like in a healthy in a healthy way.
Awesome. So on the topic of your of the ambassadors and the moderators, are these champions and moderators volunteer roles? That was another question that came in.
Yeah, our ambassador program, like, we make it really clear on the landing page, like it's a volunteer program, it's very much like, if you want to join, you're welcome to, and it's a 1-year thing. So if folks want to leave after 1 year, totally fine. If they want to leave before, it's also totally fine. And we've had that happen. What we've found is, the folks who want to stick around and are really excited about this, they love doing this. And many of them start businesses and have been really successful. In fact, there's like a couple of people who are making more than $1 million a year now by selling courses on Notion and consulting. The platforms that these folks have built have been like incredibly lucrative. And I mean, there's like a couple dozen people now who are like really living off of this and making salaries and hiring people too to join their teams. The certification program I was talking about. So I think a lot of these folks who just did this for fun have have ended up in a place where like they've just kind of gone in this trajectory where they've just been super successful in it, and they have this amazing reach and ability to kind of build something really meaningful around this.
Awesome. So the next question's from Isabella Navarro. You did kind of answer this question, and based on the timing of it, I think it might have come in before you went over this part of your presentation. But where and how do folks host these location-based or interest-based community groups? Is there a shared platform, or is it more of a choose-your-own-adventure approach? If it's the latter, which it is, how do you measure the impact? And I believe this question was asked before you kind of went through your OKR part and things like that at the end, but
yeah,
just want to have color.
Yeah. So we actually thought about this a lot, and going with like the choose your own adventure approach versus like everyone needs to use the same platform, do it how we want. And there's definitely pros and cons to both. Like there's by no means a clear winner here. We ended up going with choose your own adventure because we felt that the pros of it being authentic and bottoms up, and wherever you are, in whatever geo you are, and this being very global and people wanting to do these in their own platforms and languages, we just thought like, this as a long-term bet could pay off well for us. And so these groups are literally on every platform. I mean, WeChat, Telegram, Facebook, Reddit, Discord, Kakao, like every local type of tool that exists is on it. And which is great, but with that definitely comes challenges, because like we don't really have a way to measure, how are all these groups doing? Like which ones are growing, which ones are not, like which geos are on the rise, which need help, who needs help. Like there's definitely, it definitely comes with a challenge. That's something we've struggled with, and we're still trying to figure out how best to do that. We actually ended up building our own tool recently to be able to kind of do that, and we're right now basically we're tracking like 100 something of these groups and communities manually. And we're kind of outsourcing kind of the data entry of this, and we're able to kind of see what is happening, and kind of have a bird's eye view of everything going on. But that by no means is like the best way to do it, because this took us a long time, and I know people are trying to fix this and find solutions, but it's the choose your own adventure really comes with that challenge, I would say.
Awesome. So I like the next question. So we've heard a lot about kind of all the amazing support you have, like through various third parties, people, platforms, et cetera, and kind of how that's really grown extensively. But how big is the actual community team at Notion, and how did you prioritize when to hire new people?
Yeah, so there's me. We have a community manager. We're hiring another community manager right now, which if you go to notion.so/jobs, it's there. So it's a new role. We have I think maybe 4 or 5 contractors who we work with, like on a 50% kind of work basis. And then kind of what I spoke about as well is some of these programs have kind of built their own homes inside of Notion, which has been really great. So like our influencer program, we hired someone incredible to just focus on that and kind of take that to the next level. And we ended up bringing on someone to focus just on events, and now they run block by block. So I think what's cool about a growing company is having these programs kind of take wings and really kind of turn into these functions that are able to kind of fully invest in it and take them to the next level.
Awesome. I love the next question. It's from an anonymous attendee, but they're interested to learn how you fail fast. Have there been situations where you've withdrawn company support from a community concept that didn't scale?
Like initiatives that we tried and stopped.
Yeah, that, and I think, or just areas that you've tried to invest in, maybe over moderating or really trying to get a firm handle on that, in the end, you figured out that you couldn't really control.
That's a good question. I mean, there's definitely things that I would love to be doing a lot more of, and we just don't have the resources to be doing them. Like I would, our template gallery, for example, like I think it could. There's so much happening in the world of Notion templates. We didn't really go into this, but there are people actually selling templates now and also earning revenue from that. And I think there's so much potential to create like a really vibrant marketplace around that. And there actually are people in our community who have built kind of these Notion marketplaces with like where you could sell workspaces and sell templates and and share tools and third-party tools people are building. But I think oftentimes it just comes down to like resourcing and how much are you able to invest and who has the capacity to work on these things, right? So I think with any growing startup, that's going to happen. For me, really, like I think the hardest thing has been like how do you prioritize and try to figure out how, like, are you working on the right things, and the things that you want to be doing more of, like how do you make them happen when you don't have the resources to do that? Like pretty normal challenges at any startup, but they're definitely they definitely come up for us and as well as for any company.
Awesome. Do you have an affiliate program as well, and how does that differ from your ambassador program?
Do I have sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, does Notion have its own affiliate program, and if you do, how would that differ from the ambassador program?
Yeah, we've actually been piloting an affiliate program, and I think how would it differentiate? I mean, I think anyone in our ambassador program could be in our affiliate program, but our ambassador program is very like we want people to feel very special that they're a part of it. So we only onboard 20 people every other month. And we have a pretty long waiting list of people applying. So I think an affiliate program would be much more like broad, and anyone can kind of be a part of it, and whoever is building an audience and has the ability to kind of share and spread would be able to earn money from being a part of that. I think that really kind of would apply globally. But I think our ambassador program, and if you go onto our community page, you can kind of see like the guidelines and what we're looking for. But like we really want people to be like leaders in the Notion community before they apply, and that is why kind of we have this waiting list and application process for folks who really are excited to be a part of it.
Awesome. Two more questions. What advice do you have for working with influencers who aren't coming to you, like such as influencer outreach? Doesn't sound like that's a problem that you currently have, but I would definitely be curious of that myself as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've always done influencer outreach, and it wasn't people coming to us; it was always us approaching. It was really always us approaching influencers. I think the big thing that the thing that was really helpful to us was like we would reach out to people who we saw maybe mention Notion or spoke about Notion or following people who heard about Notion. So there was always like some connection, and I think one thing that really helped was when they didn't know Notion, we would offer them like a free plan so they could just get started. And people obviously were more excited about that. So that proved really well. And just then we would set a reminder, hey, let's chat with them in 3 months from now and see how they're feeling about Notion. I think we just really looked at like where like what segments worked really well for us, like productivity, education, like those were two places that Notion really shined. So just reaching out to as many YouTubers and creators as we could in that space, and asking them like, hey, is there something we can do together? And oftentimes people would say like, yeah, love to, but like, what is Notion, or, and that was finding a way to like, finding a flow for that. It takes time. And I think, really like the flywheel over time, the way we were able to build that was like, what helped was the more YouTubers we worked with, the more other YouTubers would see their videos, because influencers watch other influencers pretty often. So I think, as soon as we kind of got started with like these first folks and they were producing videos, like over time it got easier and easier. But that being said, like the first couple months was definitely a lot of work, and so how do you provide support to these influencers? How do you make them like really love your product? Like that's super critical.
Awesome.
I don't know if it's helpful. I could like talk about that for hours. There's just so much there.
Awesome. No, I for me personally, I mean, I as the only person that's not muted, I did find it very compelling when you explained that it even took you time to really like figure it out over a couple of months, like, just laying it out there, even without really an angle, just kind of educating and slowly trying to get outreach done. And then I guess the network effect, which I don't know if you anticipated that kind of network effect or knew that was necessarily going to be part of the journey you were on, and maybe why you chose to invest there, but definitely like super valuable to know that that's something that should be an ongoing thing, and something that just doesn't happen overnight. And like you're kind of selling, so the pitch and how you go about figuring out how to work together is an iterative thing that takes time. So the last question I love as well comes from Jacob Harris. What was the most game-changing decision Notion has made in building its community strategy? Like, was there a specific kind of turning point in something that you guys did that you really felt accelerated your programming?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to say if there's like one thing. I think most of the stuff I've said, but like the themes I think were very important, which is one, like this decentralized bottoms up approach. I think was huge for us. I think identifying themes in the community and doubling down on them was also really big for us. I would say I think those two are probably like the biggest like themes of everything we've done that's kind of helped fuel a lot of this. Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. That was an awesome Q&A. Thank you so much. Really, really good on your feet with some really, really valuable insights and answers. So Ben, we're going to wrap up. So thanks again for offering all your valuable insights, bringing us behind the curtain a little bit on Notion. That's awesome. I am going to just share my screen just as a quick reminder to everybody that you're going to receive a webinar survey. We would really appreciate if you took a minute to submit it. The session's also being recorded. It'll be emailed to you. It'll also be hosted right here at the top of our community insight space in our Campfire community, community.tribe.so. Just Ben, thanks again for all your time, and good luck with everything in the future. Sounds like you guys got a lot of amazing things in progress and planned. So we'll be following along as power users at Tribe ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
All right, take care.